today by divine appointment. If you are new to Unity or Unity of West Lynn, we invite you to visit our website, which is www.worldhealing.org. I'll give that again. www, or 3dub as I like to say, worldhealing.org. All right, we're going to start with our mission statement, and I believe all of you probably know it by heart, but let's say it together. The Unity Center is a ministry of people of all ages, backgrounds, and beliefs celebrate the one common spiritual thread that lives in every heart. We're delighted to have Reverend Christine Green with us today, and she will now lead us in our opening prayer.
Thank you, Jim. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here today. So let's take a couple, I'm not going to say deep breaths because I don't want you to inhale smoke. But take a breath, what feels comfortable for you, and let's turn within and pray. So right now, in this holy and sacred moment, I am so grateful for the opportunity to be in community today. And it is in this moment that I know and recognize that there is but one infinite presence, one divine source, one eternal presence of love, and that this presence, this power, this life is good, and it is God, and it is the only presence and the only power flowing in and through and as me this day. And I know that this presence flows through all of humanity as goodness, as light, as love, as peace and wisdom. And so I know our time today is blessed, that whatever needs to be heard is heard, whatever needs to be revealed is revealed with ease and grace. And so I extend this prayerful blessing, seeing a blanket of love over all of Oregon, knowing that love is raining down on every town, every city, every community, knowing that love is a nurturing blanket of warmth, of inspiration, of caregiving for whatever is needed, knowing that everyone is surrounded and blessed with this divine and sacred love. And so I know that here today that we receive all that we are willing and open and ready to receive. So I give grateful thanks for this opportunity, for this blessing, for this good, and I release this word with deep gratitude. And so it is. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Christine. And now for some music.
Just like the keys of a piano are we, two different colors and all different keys, living in search of the same melodies, and looking for ways to be blending. Just like the strings of a silent guitar, we're next to each other, not touching, but play them and then we can see who we are and hear how we're sounding together. Just when it seems that we're learning the songs, we'll find an excuse to stop playing. Embarrassed that some of the notes might be wrong, and afraid of what we might be saying. And just like the face of a banjo is round, we follow the circle and soak up the sound, learning the way that our lives are all wound, lives that keep growing in circles. Just like the notes of a scale we wait, hoping for one to arrange us, descending and climbing in measures of fate, resolving our patterns and changes. Just like the keys of a piano are we, different colors and all different keys, living in search of the same melodies, and looking for ways to be blended.
That was lovely music. Thank you. And now for Reverend Green's message.
Thank you, Jim. Again, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for being here today. It's a joy to be with you, especially today. Wow, what an experience this week. My talk title is The Sacred Moment of Now, and my confession is it's been hard to stay in that moment of now. I don't know about you, but when you know you're a level 1 or a level 2 or whatever level or whatever's going on, it's kind of you feel a little on edge and you're wondering, well, what do I do next? What should I prepare for? So I find that I'm not always in the present moment. And it's really a week of grieving, isn't it? Watching the news and seeing the loss of so many homes and businesses and the destruction of our beautiful forest land that we cherish so much here in Oregon, and the loss of cities and towns, it's just overwhelming. The fact is that we just don't grieve one thing. That grief is in our memory banks. It's in the cells of our bodies. So when we experience grief, new grief brings up old grief. It brings up old emotions. And that was my experience this week. All the smoke and in the sky, in the orange sky, brought back all the emotions from the gorge fire just 3 years ago. Remember that? And that was just felt like a gut punch. And so now here we were again. And then on Friday, add to that the anniversary of 9/11. And there were just a lot of swirling emotions happening for not only for myself, I know many of us were going through that. And I had a client once share with me that when her mother died, she was so busy taking care of funeral arrangements and the friends and family that were in town and all the things that she had to do, she felt like she never fully was able to grieve the loss of her mother. But just a few months later, her son's best friend, teenage best friend, died in a motorcycle accident. And my client said she grieved so deeply, and she was confused because she didn't even grieve that deeply for her mother, and like what was going on, and she felt guilty about it. And what it was delayed grief. She was grieving her mother, and the loss, every loss that she experienced, she was grieving because it all comes up. And so what happened is we've been grieving since March. Our lives changed in March, and we've been dealing the best we can. And there's a level of free-flowing anxiety. There's a level of sadness, a level of frustration, and that's grief. And so it's important to name it and to feel it, because when we don't, we suppress it until it can't be suppressed anymore, and it changes our perception of life. And so it's interesting to observe that. And that's what's interesting about perception. Perception is in our bodies, in our minds. We hold all the experiences of our lives. We hold emotions, grief, pain, joy, elation. It's held in our body and in our senses. And so it's all mixed together when we observe events. And so we have a perception of the world based on our past history, based on our emotions. And if you showed someone the picture of a candle, to one person it might mean fire and be careful, and another person it might mean peace, because we bring with it our perception of everything that's coming through our senses, and it's filtered through our senses. So it's a wonder that we agree on anything, right? Because we all have these different perceptions that we bring, that these different emotions and experiences that we bring when we observe something. And this is what happens in the world right now. We're all observing it from different levels. What the Course in Miracles says, what you see reflects your thinking. And your thinking reflects the choice of what you want to see. Your thinking reflects the choice of what you want to see. And so we talk a lot about, during this time of COVID and now with the fires, about pain and suffering. And pain happens in the body, but suffering happens in the mind. And it's really difficult to stay present when we're in pain or suffering. But pain is real. Pain, we live in a body, we have a body. And so the body changes, stuff happens, and there's pain. And pain is real. And it sometimes in chronic pain, it's a constant companion. And it takes up so much space in our lives and requires so much attention. And so we often feel alone and isolated with our pain. And pain comes from swollen joints, fluid-filled lungs, damaged nerves, and we experience more pain as the body ages and changes. A friend was recently telling me about her book group. And she says, well, we call it a book group, but it's really an organ recital. We sit around and recite all the problems we're having with our organs. I could relate to that. Can anyone else relate to that? So we said pain happens in the body, but suffering happens in the mind. And so I suffer when I tell the story about my pain. And it goes back to perception. Have you ever had a cold a common cold could just take us down in a moment. I don't know about you, but for me, the symptoms might be mild, but the effects on the mind are overwhelming. I noticed the last time I had a cold, I was obsessed about what I wasn't getting done. I'm not doing this, I'm missing this event, and I can't go here, and things that I wanted to do. And it happens every time I feel not feeling well. There's at least a dozen things that I wanted to do, right? And I'm mourning the loss of that. Why can't I do that? And so we suffer emotionally, and we do for so many reasons. We suffer from grief, from loss, from the agony, if you've ever watched a loved one in pain. But it's to be aware of the suffering from the stories that we tell ourselves. The stories of frustration or sadness, disappointment, rejection. And it's usually from an experience in the past. I remember years ago, I was talking to my dad one day, and he was telling me this story about what happened with his fishing buddy, and that he said these things, and then he did this, and then he did that. Well, my dad wasn't fishing anymore. I said, when did this happen? He said, well, back in '84. And I was like, you're still hanging on to it. I wanted to tell him he's still hanging on to that thing that had happened so many years ago. And that's what we do. We hang on to those experiences from the past, and we forget to be in the moment of now. In the moment of now is where our focus needs to be. And so in quantum physics, physicists perform experiments. And when they were studying the nucleus of an atom, they were aware of the nucleus, and they were paying attention to the nucleus. And there's a big field of energy around it. Now, I'm talking in very layman's terms. So excuse my layman's terms about quantum physics. But so they study the nucleus of an atom, and they know there's this unlimited field of possibility. But in order to measure it and observe it, they wanted to look at the electron. So they took their attention off the atom to look for the electron, and the minute they did, the energy dispersed. The power was gone, and it collapsed into matter. It collapsed into a particle. And this is called collapsing the wave. And so then when they took their attention off looking for the electron and went back to the atom, there was the infinite field of possibility. And we have the same opportunity, that we know we're one with an infinite field of possibility, one with a creative expression, an intelligent cause, an infinite mind. Ernest Holmes calls it the thing itself. So here's that infinite presence. But the moment I say, where is my good? I've taken my attention off the source of my good, and I start looking around. Well, where could it be? Where is it coming from? Where is it? I've taken my attention away, and I've moved out of the divine flow. And now I've lost the connection, and I only see the problem. Well, where is this good going to come from? Where is it? I only see the problem. And I lose the connection if I'm worried about tomorrow, if I wonder if things will go back to normal. Anybody think about that? We wonder, when will things go back to normal? I'm wondering if I will get through this. Every time I'm painting a picture of what I don't want, I've taken my attention off the source of my good. In her book, Defy Gravity, Carolyn May says, "We are living in a turbulent world, and although societies have always known problems, the problems we face today are bigger and more powerful than we are." She says, "We can no longer talk our way out of a crisis. We cannot solve financial, political, or environmental problems with paper legislation. The problems facing humanity today have become unreasonable. A global nuclear crisis is an unreasonable crisis. A global climate meltdown is an unreasonable crisis that we cannot buy our way out of." And so what she says, we have to shift to another perception, to a realm that's beyond conventional reason. And she says, we have to think as the mystics did. We must learn to defy gravity. And how we do that, it requires us having a capacity to see the world through the power of our soul. And so what is impossible in the physical world of reason and logic becomes completely possible in the world of grace and mystical laws and divine companionship. So when we look at the world around us, we have a choice of how to see it. Are we going to see it as limitation, or are we going to see it as possibility? And the Course in Miracles says, if you are fearful, it is certain that you will endow the world with attributes that it does not possess and crowd it with images that do not exist. So when we operate out of fear, we're putting that energy into the world because we know we're part of the unlimited source. And so this is really important to pay attention to, because it's so easy to get caught up in what we're observing in the world and say, look at this situation, look how bad it is. And my practice is I refuse to look at it. I'm looking at, what do I want instead? What's the unlimited source that I want to put my attention on? We were in our prayer group and at my church, and Reverend Shannon used the phrase, it's raining love. And it's like, yes, I'm going to visualize raining love and a blanket of nurturing over people. That's what we want to see. Because the world we live in right now, we're seeing uncertainty, loss, fear, big time fear, social injustice. And so we're suffering, watching our principles and values change. And that seems to be less regard for humanity. But if we stay attached to that image, that's what we're going to have, is more of that image. Whatever you put your attention on increases. So instead of sending out fear, what do we want? When you focus on what you don't want, we give it power. And I say, stop, let's stop it. Just stop it. And so when I find myself doing that, I have this practice of clapping my hands and waking myself up and stop it. Stop doing that. Don't do that. What do you want? We have to stop feeding the dragon of limitation, that dragon of fear, anxiety, loss. But what do we want the world to look like? We want a world that works for everyone. We want love to be the presence. And what wonderful stories, how so many communities are coming together to help the people that lost their homes, that all the people that came forward to fight the fires. I mentioned earlier, my friends in Canby have a food truck. People donated money to them and they're making food for the firefighters and first responders. They're cooking food as fast as they can. People have donated so many things to help. What's on the other side of suffering is grace. And what's on the other side of fear is faith. And it's so important for us in our spiritual practice to remember this. This is why we practice. This is why we read spiritual books, why we do forgiveness work, why we pray. When we stand in the center of our suffering and observe that we have a source, we have a connection, we have a power that we know is true. This is the truth that we know. This is the power that we know. And so when you find yourself in that place of pain or suffering, I invite you to do this little prayer called a love prayer. And what it is just saying, I bless you, I accept you. I think I've shared it with you before, but this is a good time to remember this. And if there's someone that you're thinking of, maybe someone you don't have very good energy with, send them that prayer. I bless you, I accept you. If there's someone you're worried about that they might be hurting, send them that prayer. I bless you, I accept you. Whenever we bless anyone or send out a blessing, we raise the vibration. And we want to raise the vibration of love. Carolyn Mace reminds us of these spiritual practices and principles that we can live by. Say only what you believe and believe what you say. Say what you believe. Speak the words that you believe, that you want to see. Remember, power happens inside. It's not an outside power, it's an inside power. True power is invisible. When we connect with the soul, we connect with our true power. She says, remember, thought precedes the creation of matter. Thought precedes the creation of matter. So our thoughts are instruments of creation. Become conscious of the quality of thoughts. Every thought is a prayer. And she says, resist the need to judge. She says, judgment anchors you to the person or the thing you judge, making you its servant. Judge others too harshly and you become their prisoner. There's never been a better time than now to remember this, especially as we want to raise the vibration as we get ready to vote the most important vote in our country, as we get ready to heal the discord, the social injustice. This is our time to raise the vibration of love. Emma Curtis Hopkins says, we can train our faith by proclaiming to every sign of trouble that we do not believe it. Then think thoughts along the lines of truth and bring forth delightful circumstances and charming people. I am ready for some delightful circumstances and some charming people, aren't you? I think that would be lovely. And I love this from Marianne Williamson, reminding us that here's what happens when we don't feel good. Here's an experience. We go to the doctor and the doctor says, we've done everything possible. All we can do now is pray, as if God were the last resort. God is the first place we go, not the last. God is the first place we go, and not the last resort when everything else failed. And Marianne says, you're not asking for a force outside of you to magically change external circumstances. But what we're doing is asking that divine guidance, that infinite field of energy, guide you and change you of the nature of your thoughts. That's what we're doing. Let's go to God first. Let's not look at the circumstances and say, oh, woe is me. How will we ever get through this, is what we're saying. Or I had a friend say, well, what's going to happen next? And I said, stop it. Stop saying that. What do you want to happen next? I know love is happening next. I know unlimited energy is happening next. Prayer is always working. Our job is to let go of attachment, to let go of what we're observing in the world, and to say, I know God is at the presence of this right now. And those flames are being diminished with the rains of love, that there's a blanket of eternal good being covered over everything, that grace is being coming out of everywhere, is grace, just bringing peace and wholeness and freedom and abundance to all. Practice visualizing that. Just like athletes practice seeing themselves excelling at their sport. They see themselves, they feel the emotion, they see them hitting the ball and running the over the goal line, rising above. That's our job, is to be the producer of our movie and see it as one that is goodness and grace. Let's project love. Picture a world that works for everyone. Imagine freedom and peace and abundance for all. Picture social justice regardless of race, creed, and color of skin. Imagine that everyone has the medical care, resources, jobs, houses, opportunities. Let's practice love. Let's practice faith. Let's practice grace. And so let's pray. Oh, knowing right here and right now this unlimited presence that is God, that is good, that is eternal source of good, that unlimited source of power, of love, of a presence, an unlimited presence that is the very breath that we breathe, is this presence. And so I know right here and right now, there is only this presence operating in and through and as each one of us. That only this presence is operating in every firefighter and every first responder. And that this fire is being diminished as we speak. That the rains of love, the presence of love, is diminishing this fire. That we send love all around to our forests, to homes, to our cities, and know that they are protected. I know the smoke is lifted. We visualize it being lifted up, and that we're free to breathe in the unlimited resource of good that is God. I know this presence of good is operating in every branch of our government, that every person in our government is being lifted up, that goodness is flowing in and through and as them. I know that everyone has the right to vote, and that right now there are people working all around the country to make voting an opportunity for everyone, where no one is denied. I know that everything that we need for a world that works for everyone is right here and right now. And so I proclaim it, I know it, I see it, I feel it. I stand in this moment of now and absolutely proclaim the good that is God is revealed. I know all that we need comes forth with ease and grace. I know that God is the unlimited power, and miracles are a natural birthright and are happening in this very moment. And so I give grateful thanks for everyone here today, everyone listening to this message. I know this message goes out as love, as light, as freedom, as grace, and that each one of us feels that and sends this out everywhere, knowing love is the goodness, is the answer, is the grace. And so I give grateful thanks for this opportunity, for this service today, and release it all in deep gratitude and love. And so it is. Amen. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Reverend Christine, for that really inspiring message. There's several nuggets in there worth writing down. This is the part of our celebration where we act on our faith and commitments. We take this opportunity to express our gratitude for the Unity Center of West Lynn and for the abundance that's in our lives. And part of that abundance is your message to us today. And we are very grateful that you are with us. Okay, now this is a time where you pretend where you're digging in your wallets and through your purses and bringing out an offering to help sustain our ministry where we receive these kinds of wonderful messages. Okay, thank you for digging deep. And we want to remind you all of our intention and vision of the Unity Center in its 30th year. Mark that, 30 years. And our statement is Spirit-led. We are co-creating a vibrant and inclusive ministry, welcoming and supporting everyone on their spiritual journey. So thank you for your gifts. And I believe we have a slide of where you have, no? Okay. So we will thank you in advance for your gifts and checks. And you may call the church to find out different ways of how to give your offering. And now that we have received it, we cite our offering prayer. God's love in me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you for your abundant gifts. And we have a few announcements. You noted that I stressed 30 years. We had planned to have a 30th anniversary celebration, but given the circumstances of not only the smoke that surrounds our area, but the pandemic with which we are still dealing with, that celebration service has been postponed. And so I just wanted you all to know that. Another very important thing to put on your calendars is the date of October 4th. That is the time when we switch the time of our service. Several of us were present in the discussion of when, how, and where we should switch the services, and we compromised at 10:30. So starting October 4th, our services will be at 10:30. So do mark that on your calendar, and we will look forward to seeing you then. And there's a few Sundays left between now and October 4th. We look forward to seeing you next week as well. Okay, oh, and men's and women's groups meet this week. The men's group meets 7:30 Monday night. And the women's group, Joyce, what time period, not Joyce, Joanne, what time is the service or the scheduled time for the women's group?
Actually, can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay. I said, actually, last week was our second Tuesday, so we met last week, so we won't be meeting until October.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for that clarification and from saving me from some great embarrassment. Men's group, I will send that notice out this afternoon, send you the Zoom link for that. And obviously this has been somewhat of a tumultuous week, which is why I haven't gotten around to sending out that email. So my apologies in advance. Okay, do we have some music, Jan? She's looking, I can see it. And I read her lips. She said, just a moment.
Just a quick second here. Can you see that?
Like the wind blows, go where the heart knows, where the road leads you, where the road winds. Whatever you pursue, you know, the people who love you know you can't go forward without leaving some things behind. You're on your way, wherever you go. Hold on to all that you know, and you'll never be too far from the people who love you. When hard times find you, Lord, they're blindside you. That's when you need to remember who you are. There lies inside you all that will guide you. So when you're unsure, follow your northern star. You're on your way, wherever you go. On to all that you know, and you'll never be too far from the people who love you.
Thank you, Jan. And as we close our service today, we'll do the prayer of transformation, followed by the peace song. So together, let's recite the the prayer of transformation. The light of God is in us. The love of God moves through us. The power of God transforms us. And the presence of God is who we are. Wherever we go, God is, and all is well. Okay, we will stop the recording at this point, but don't go away because we're going to sing our peace song. And please, everybody